There's a certain kind of fear that doesn't just make your heart race. It lingers long after the moment has passed. It's the fear of being watched, of knowing that someone out there has chosen you, and that no matter how careful you are, they always seem to be one step ahead. Stalking isn't just a plotline for movies or a cautionary tale whispered between friends. For some, it's a waking nightmare that invades every part of their life, turning the ordinary into something sinister. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 true stories of people who survived stalker nightmares. Stories that will make you question every shadow, every unknown number, and every face in the crowd. The first story begins in a small college town, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, or at least thinks they do. For Emma, college was supposed to be a fresh start. She was away from home for the first time, living in a dorm with new friends, excited for everything the future might hold. But it didn't take long for the excitement to turn to dread. It started with small things: a text from an unknown number, a bouquet of flowers left outside her door, and a note slipped under her windshield wiper. At first, Emma thought it was a secret admirer, maybe a shy classmate working up the courage to talk to her. But the messages grew more frequent, more personal. The sender knew things about her schedule, her classes, and even the clothes she wore on certain days. The notes became more intense, shifting from flattery to obsession. "I see you," one read. "You looked beautiful in the blue sweater today." Emma tried to ignore it, hoping it would stop on its own. She changed her routine, started walking to class with friends, and made sure her dorm room was always locked. But the messages kept coming, and the feeling of being watched grew stronger. She started to notice a figure in the distance, a man in a dark hoodie, always just out of sight, always gone when she tried to get a better look. One night, Emma came back to her dorm to find her window open, the screen pushed in. Nothing was missing, but her belongings had been moved, her books stacked in a different order, and her clothes rearranged in her closet. She called campus security, but they found no evidence of forced entry, no fingerprints, nothing to go on. The police took a report, but without a suspect, there was little they could do. The stalking escalated. Emma started receiving phone calls in the middle of the night. Heavy breathing, silence, sometimes a whisper of her name. She stopped sleeping, stopped going out, and stopped trusting anyone she didn't know. Her grades slipped, her friendships suffered, and she felt like she was losing her mind. The fear was constant, a weight pressing down on her every minute of every day. Finally, Emma's parents intervened. They pulled her out of school, brought her home, and helped her file for a restraining order. The police increased patrols around their house, and Emma started therapy to deal with the trauma. It took months, but eventually, the messages stopped. The man in the hoodie was never caught, but Emma survived. She rebuilt her life, piece by piece, learning to trust again, to feel safe again. But the fear never fully left. Even now, years later, she still checks the locks twice before going to bed and still glances over her shoulder when she walks alone. She survived her stalker, but the nightmare changed her forever. The second story is about a man named David, whose nightmare began with a simple act of kindness. David worked at a local coffee shop, the kind of place where regulars came in every morning, where he knew most customers by name. One day, a woman started coming in, quiet and polite, always ordering the same drink. She seemed lonely, so David made an effort to be friendly, to remember her order, and to ask about her day. She smiled, thanked him, and left a generous tip. But soon, the woman's visits became more frequent. She started waiting for David's shift, sitting in the corner for hours, watching him work. She began leaving notes on the counter, compliments, poems, sometimes just his name written over and over. David tried to be polite, but the attention made him uncomfortable. He mentioned it to his manager, who shrugged it off as harmless. Then the gifts started, small things at first, a book she thought he'd like, a scarf she'd knitted herself. David thanked her, but asked her to stop. She didn't. Instead, the gifts became more personal. Photos of David taken from outside his apartment, a lock of hair, and a note that read, "We're meant to be together." David realized she'd been following him home, watching him from the street. He called the police, but they said there was little they could do unless she threatened him or tried to break in. David changed his routine and started staying with friends, but the woman always found him. She sent messages to his family, his friends, and even his boss. She created fake social media accounts, posting about their relationship, tagging him in Photoshop pictures of them together. The situation reached a breaking point when David came home one night to find the woman waiting outside his door. She was crying, begging him to let her in, insisting that they belonged together. David called the police, who finally intervened. The woman was arrested and ordered to stay away from him, but the damage was done. David moved to a new city, changed his phone number, and deleted his social media. He spent months looking over his shoulder, jumping at every unexpected sound. He survived his stalker, but the experience left him anxious, distrustful, and always on guard. The third story is about survival in the face of relentless obsession. Sarah was a young professional living in a big city, working long hours and enjoying her independence. She was careful, always aware of her surroundings, never taking unnecessary risks. But even the most cautious person can become a target. It started with a series of emails from an address she didn't recognize. The messages were friendly at first, asking about her day and complimenting her work. Sarah ignored them, assuming it was spam. But the emails kept coming, growing more insistent, more personal. The sender knew details about her life, her favorite coffee shop, the route she took to work, and the name of her dog. Sarah blocked the address, but new ones kept appearing, each message more invasive than the last. Then the packages started arriving at her office: flowers, gifts, and handwritten notes. Her coworkers joked about her secret admirer, but Sarah was terrified. She reported the harassment to her company's HR department, who advised her to contact the police. The police took her seriously, but without a name or a face, there was little they could do. One night, Sarah came home to find her apartment door ajar. Inside, nothing was missing, but a single rose lay on her pillow, along with a note: "I was here. I'll always be here." Sarah moved to a new apartment, installed security cameras, and started carrying pepper spray. The messages continued, but Sarah refused to let her stalker control her life. She worked with the police, documenting every incident, every message, and every unwanted gift. Eventually, the stalker slipped up. He was caught on camera outside her building, and the police were able to identify and arrest him. Sarah testified in court, facing her stalker for the first time. He was convicted and sent to prison, but the fear lingered. Sarah survived her stalker, but the experience changed her. She became an advocate for victims of stalking, sharing her story to help others recognize the signs and protect themselves. Surviving a stalker is not just about escaping a person. It's about reclaiming your life from the grip of fear. For Emma, David, and Sarah, the end of their stalker nightmares didn't mean the end of their anxiety. It meant learning to live with a new kind of vigilance, a heightened awareness that most people never have to carry. But it also meant discovering a strength they never knew they had, and finding ways to help others who might be living through the same nightmare. Emma's story didn't end when she left college. For months, she struggled with panic attacks and insomnia, haunted by the idea that her stalker could find her again. She changed her phone number, deleted her social media, and avoided crowded places. But slowly, with the support of her family and a dedicated therapist, she began to heal. She started volunteering at a local women's shelter, sharing her story with others who had experienced stalking or abuse. She found comfort in community, in knowing she wasn't alone. Over time, Emma learned to trust herself again. She still has bad days, but she refuses to let fear dictate her life. She's become an advocate for campus safety, working with universities to improve security and support for students who feel threatened. Her experience, as traumatic as it was, became a catalyst for change, not just for herself, but for others who might one day need help. David's recovery was slower. The betrayal of trust, the invasion of his privacy, left scars that took years to fade. He moved to a new city, started a new job, and tried to put the past behind him. But the anxiety lingered. He found himself avoiding eye contact with strangers, double-checking locks, and feeling a jolt of panic every time he saw a woman who resembled his stalker. Therapy helped, but what made the biggest difference was connecting with other men who had experienced similar harassment. David realized that stalking isn't just something that happens to women. It can happen to anyone, and the shame and isolation can be just as intense. He started a support group for male victims of stalking, creating a space where men could share their stories without fear of judgment. Through helping others, David found a sense of purpose, and slowly, the fear began to loosen its hold. Sarah's journey was marked by resilience and determination. After her stalker was arrested, she became a vocal advocate for stronger anti-stalking laws and better protection for victims. She spoke at conferences, wrote articles, and worked with law enforcement to develop training programs for officers responding to stalking cases. Sarah's message was simple but powerful. Believe victims, take threats seriously, and never underestimate the impact of stalking on a person's life. Her advocacy led to real change. Her city passed new legislation making it easier for victims to get restraining orders and access support services. Sarah's courage inspired others to come forward, and her story became a beacon of hope for those still living in fear. What ties these stories together isn't just the terror of being stalked, it's the strength it takes to survive. Stalking is a crime of control, of power, of making someone feel small and helpless. But Emma, David, and Sarah refused to be defined by their fear. They fought back, not just for themselves, but for others who might one day walk the same path. Their stories are a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is hope, there is help, and there is a way out. If you're listening to these stories and thinking, that could never happen to me, remember that stalking can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter where you live, what you do, or how careful you are. The most important thing is to trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't be afraid to ask for help, to reach out to friends, family, or authorities. Document everything, every message, every encounter, every unwanted gift. The more evidence you have, the easier it will be to get help if you need it. And if you know someone who might be experiencing stalking, believe them. Listen without judgment, offer support, and help them find resources. Stalking thrives in silence and isolation. By speaking out, by sharing stories, and by supporting each other, we can break the cycle of fear. Technology has made stalking easier in some ways. Social media, smartphones, and online databases can give stalkers access to information they never could have found before. But technology can also be a tool for protection. Use privacy settings, block unwanted contacts, and don't be afraid to go offline if you need to. There are apps and services designed to help victims of stalking, from emergency alerts to secure messaging platforms. Knowledge is power, and the more you know, the safer you'll be. As we come to the end of these stories, remember that survival is not just about escaping danger. It's about reclaiming your life, your peace of mind, and your sense of self. Emma, David, and Sarah are survivors, not just victims. Their stories are a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of community, and the strength that comes from facing your fears head-on. Thank you for joining me on this journey through 3 true stories of people who survived stalker nightmares. If you have a story of your own, a moment when you felt watched, followed, or threatened, share it in the comments. You never know who might need to hear it, who might find comfort in knowing they're not alone. Stay safe, trust your instincts, and remember, sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that could happen to any of us.